Area between two curves. If I want to find the area between these two graphs right here, first thing you got to do is find out where they cross. So you're going to set the cube root, which is the cube root of x minus 1 equals to x minus 1. You're going to set them equal and solve it. When you do that, you cube both sides. And you get x minus 1 equals, when you cube this, you end up with x cubed minus 3x squared plus 3x minus 1. Then, when you move all this over, you get 0 equals x cubed minus 3x squared. This minuses over, becomes a plus 2x, and this cancels with this. When you factor this, you get a GCF of x coming out, leaving you x squared minus 3x plus 2. So you get 0 equals x. When you factor, you get 2 and negative 3, so that would be negative 2 and negative 1. So my answers are 0, 2, and 1. Those are my intersection points. So if I find the area between them, here's what it's going to look like. You're going to have 1 from 0 to 1 plus a second one from 1 to 2. And it's going to be dx because everything's in terms of x. But to do that, we have to find the two equations. We have to find which one's on top, which one's on bottom. Okay? That's the tricky part now. So we have the two intervals. Now we got to figure out, is this one or this one within these intervals from 0 to 1 and 1 to 2, which one's on top, which one's on bottom. Here's how you figure that out. Basically, to do that, you need to plug in 1/2 and 1 and 1/2. When you plug in 1/2 to this one, so if I find f of 1/2, that is negative 0.79, and g of 1/2 would be simply negative 1/2. Correct? Now, which one's bigger? Which one's higher? I shouldn't say bigger, which one's higher? Isn't this one actually higher? If you think of negatives, on a negative, negatives kind of mess you up because it's backwards. So technically, g of x is higher, so we're going to take g of x and we're going to minus f of x. Now, we're going to plug in f of 3 over 2 and g of 3 over 2. Now, g of 3 over 2 is positive 1/2. This one's just going to be, isn't it positive 7/9? So for this one, which one's higher? Isn't f higher now? So that would be the process. Now, you would then integrate this, which is a basic integration technique. Not maybe basic, but you would take this minus this for this one, and then this minus this, and do the integration, which, yes, that is a little bit ugly of an integration. Would that be correct? It kind of takes some bit to integrate it. And then you do plug in the intervals and you calculate it. Your answer ends up being, I'm not going to do the whole work, I'm just wanting to set it up. The answer ends up being for this one, 1/2, is that it? 1/2. Because basically both of these became 1/4. But as long as you got to this point right here and set it up, and then you did the integration, you would get to 1/2. I'm not going to show all of that at this moment. because that's integrals. The key is for this problem is how do you set it up. Now, for number 30, if I want to find the area between these two curves, the first step is to find out where f and g hit. Now, the one difference about this one is because of y, we're taking our integral along against the y-axis. So when we set y over the square root of 16 minus y squared equals to 0, we set these two equal. Do we care about the bottom? No. We're setting equal to 0, it's near the top, so that would be at y equals 0. And isn't it y equals 3? If that's another graph, that is your other spot where they hit. So if we do a little sketch of this, here's how this one would look like. This right here would be g of y. This right here is y equals 3. And the next question is, where's the graph? What is this first graph? Is it going to be on this side or on this side? We know the graphs are going to hit right here. Because we said at y equals 0, they're going to hit. It said that. So somewhere right here, they're going to hit. Now, how do we find that out? Well, we got to find out which one's on top, which one's on bottom, or which one's the farthest away from the y-axis. So, in the interval from 0 to 3, let's plug in 1. That's going to be 1 over the square root of 16 minus 1 squared, which becomes 1 over the square root of 15. Now, what happens when you plug in 1 to this? Can you? No. Isn't this just 0? So is this bigger or smaller than 0? Doesn't that mean this is bigger than 0? So what that means is my graph is going to look something like this. I don't know what it's going to look like, but it's going to look something. So it goes on the right side. Thus, it's higher than 0. It's bigger than 0. It's farther away this way of 0. If this came out to be negative, it'd be on this side of the graph. Your line will be on this side. Thus, the y equals 0 is bigger than f of y. G of y equals 0 would be bigger. By the way, do you guys know when it says g of y equals 0 is the same thing as saying x equals 0? You have to understand that. G of y is the same as x equals. G of x is the same as y equals. It's actually a pretty important connection. So we now know that this graph, this is bigger than, if I put g of 1, isn't that going to be 0? This is bigger than this, so this is higher, farther away. So to write this, you would write an integral from 0 to 3, because you're going from 0 to 3. Again, your lines are this way. You're going to be adding up lines this way. You're finding the area between here. You're adding up lines. You're finding the area inside of here. Which function will be on top? Well, the top one would be f of y minus, what's the bottom equation? 0. Do I really need that 0 there? Do I need to put that 0? No. But do you have a top function and a bottom function? Technically, I probably should have put g of y, correct? Can I go back in and put that? F of y minus g of y, but what is g of y? Isn't that 0? So I got f of y minus g of y. This is 0. And if I take the time to integrate this, which would be a u substitution, your answer, your area, would end up being, was it 4?
4
minus the square root of 7?
Yes.
That would be your answer if you took the time to integrate this. Again, because f of y is farther away from g of y, so top, and the interval on the y-axis is from 0 to 3. That's the key. Find out where they cross, find out the interval, find out which one is above bigger values than the other, because f is bigger values than g, and then integrate from there.